Guys, welcome back to the Prepare to Fight Fire podcast. Super stoked today. We've got a dear friend of mine, brother, Samuel Jacobs. Samuel Jacobs has been a fireman for some time now, works in the metro Atlanta area. He's a husband, father of two, and he's got a lot of accolades that I'm going to leave out, but somebody that is a student of the craft and is making the fire service better. So Sam, welcome, man. How are you?
Doing good, bro. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming on. So we'll kind of start this conversation by how we kind of met. So I don't know if you remember. I don't actually remember us talking on the phone. I'd like to hear your history memory bank of like how we got started.
Yeah, absolutely. Was on social media looking at some training videos, and one of your reels came up on my feed. And I was like, who the hell is this guy? He's getting after it. Just this high energy, larger than life personality. And I was like, I need to cross paths with this guy. I need to network with this guy and see what's up. And then hit you up through social media, and we had a conversation. And now what? 2.5 years later, here we are.
Yeah. So here we are. So just to elephant in the room. So Sam came to me already a squared away firefighter, physically fit, mentally resilient, had a smoke diver under his title. And he wanted to take things to the next level, right? So with my coaching program at the time, it was just me that was a coach with Prepare to Fight Fire. And we talked, right? I don't remember the conversation. I do remember Sam being extremely hungry and wanting to take things to that next level. And I always found that interesting, man. And I've always wanted to kind of break that down. And this is a perfect time. What makes you tick, man? Like what makes you, you're great, right? I would confidently say you're a great firefighter. And I think what makes a great firefighter is somebody who's constantly striving to be better and doesn't rest on their laurels. So you already having a smoke diver title, you got that at a younger age, and you still striving for more impressed me. So where does that come from, man? Like where does that grind, that get after it mindset come from?
Multiple variables. I would say first and foremost, for those of you that are aware or familiar with the fear growth cycle of skill acquisition or just professional development, it's a linear path. You're either moving towards comfort or you're gravitating towards growth. There is, again, this is personal opinion. There's no such thing as maintaining or being stagnant or staying the same. You're either moving towards comfort or moving towards growth. There's no in between. It's linear. One of my mentors who I recently was assigned with a year or so ago, we were training one day, working out one day, talking trash back and forth, and he made a comment, anybody can go through those programs in their 20s. It takes a real man to do it in their 40s. So that planted a little bit of a seed. And I was like, you know what? That got my tail wagging. But no, I think in all reality, everything in our job is perishable skills: pulling hose, forcing doors, throwing ladders, searching. It's all perishable. And your mindset, your mentality is just as perishable as a tangible skill that you learn. And the first time I experienced one of these programs, I was very young in the fire service. I was 22 years old, 23 years old. Fantastic program for developing a young fireman, creating a very strong foundation. But then it's not an end all be all. You don't hang your hat on something or check a box and then never do something challenging ever again. There's no finish lines. There's thresholds. You've got to constantly sharpen the skill set that is your mentality.
I love that. So let's break some stuff down for the people that are listening. When we talk about programs, we're talking about smoke diver programs. I'll leave it up to you if you want to mention which programs, but I have a question. At a young age, do you think that program could set a firefighter up for failure if their mindset isn't in the growth mentality?
I mean, it depends on the individual. I do think that there is a certain level of maturity for approaching that type of arena. But at the same time, if a young fireman came to me asking for my advice, I would not tell them, no, you shouldn't do this. You should absolutely do this. You should. It's some of the most authentic caliber training that you can have. So I would never tell somebody, no, you shouldn't do this because you're too young or you don't have enough experience or you're not mature enough. If you're not mature enough, you're probably going to get humbled, which also isn't a bad thing.
I guess my question is this, right? You at a young age, you go through something tough, difficult, challenging, something that, 0.01% of the fire service will experience and be successful at. That's just the truth. One could say as a young firefighter that you would get cocky, you would get arrogant, you would thump your chest on that accolade and let that be your end all be all. Where, through your experience, like you just said, that's a threshold, but it doesn't mean that it's the end all be all. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yes, no, I understand. No, and again, I think that takes mentorship, somebody who has helped that individual develop. And I'm also not going to say there are individuals who have gone through these programs and it inflamed an ego for sure. I'm not going to say there's been numerous byproducts. There's candidates that are successful and it has created an inflamed ego. And there's also folks who were unsuccessful and it created a bruised ego. But what we're really looking for is the candidate that comes through that has strong character. That candidate that goes through these programs with good character, good morals, good ethos, and they are successful, they are going to come back with humility. They are going to come back and develop people that they work shoulder to shoulder with. It's not about war stories and listening to yourself talk. Nobody cares about how you climbed a mountain if you're not willing to show them how to climb.
I love that. Yeah, that's something I struggled with, man. That's something that I've developed and I've worked on, is coming in with the mindset of dropping the expectation and improving the openness of wanting to be the best team player I can be, wanting to help in whatever way possible and be the type of person that could build trust, not by what I've done, who I am, but my character, right? Be somebody that people want to work with, people want to listen to, people are excited to be around. I think the opposite of just thumping your chest on a past achievement, or even knowing you're a good fireman, knowing you're a fit fireman, knowing you're resilient. At the end of the day, the entire fire service, the world is not that way. And it doesn't do you any good to be this extraordinary firefighter if you can't work well with, let's just call it what it is, a bunch of duds, right? You get surrounded with a bunch of guys that lack in specific areas, in all areas, or are just new, lack experience, right? It's your job as a smoke diver, as a seasoned, experienced, trained professional firefighter to fill the voids and make that person just a little bit better. So I love how you kind of broke that down. I'll jump right into it since we're talking about it. So just kind of your specific story and timeline. Let's go through it, man, because that's what people want to hear. They want to learn, and I think your story is incredible. So we went through we'll keep it generalized. I know how you are. We went through a smoke diver program when you were how old?
Are you referring to you and I collaborating?
No. Your story. Your first smoke diver program. How old were you?
Okay, I understand. Okay, well, first and foremost, the first experience that I had with a cadre outside of academy or recruit school was the Georgia Flames program in Chatsworth, Georgia. I walked in at 21 years old, probably 140 pounds soaking wet, just hungry, wild dog, piss and vinegar, wanted something, wanted a standard, wanted a tribe, wanted to be a part of something greater than just the firefighter 1 standard for a job requirement. I knew that there was something more out there besides, like, you go through your basic training and you're like, there's more, there's got to be more than this.
So we get the Georgia Flames program, and we'll circle back to that, coming back, I don't know how many years later, and you being a part of it from a different angle, and in me being a candidate. We'll jump into that experience, but we go through that. How long was it until you went through your first smoke diver program?
I went the following year. I went up to Chatsworth as a candidate to the Georgia Flames program in 2015, and then I ventured to Dalton, one city over, to the Georgia Smoke Diver program the following year in the spring of 2016.
Got it. So we went from 2015 Georgia Flames, which, guys, is a 48-hour firefighting class. If you don't know much about it, check it out. It's one of the best experiences I've ever endured. It was amazing. Went through that, jumped next year, went through Georgia Smoke Divers, and then we fast forward. You are a career firefighter developing, and then you come across my page, and then that kind of lights the bug. Also had this mentor that was, in your ear of like, hey, anybody can do smoke divers when they're 20, which is not true. That's obviously this guy. I'd love to meet that guy. I love his mindset. But nonetheless, talking that shit, I love it. And then we meet, and then let's talk about it, bro. We train. So I coached Sam, and it's honestly one of my biggest honors. And I'm always super humbled and super grateful to help people that already are disciplined, already are passionate, and want to take things to the next level, because it's the application of coaching is flawless, right? And you did just that, man. We took things to the next level. I want to hear your perspective of quickly just where you were versus where you are now, and I think more mentally than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the biggest takeaway with the coach client relationship is it doesn't matter how in shape you are, it doesn't matter how disciplined you are, or how consistent you are. With the coach client interaction, you're not in control, which is very important with programming and with training towards something, an unknown. If you're always in control, writing your own workouts, creating your own programs, your own regimen, there's nothing wrong with that, but you'll have limitations because it's human nature. You're going to gravitate towards exercises and movements that you like. Versus with the coach client collaboration, the coach is going to tell you go do this, and then in your mind you're like, I don't want to do that, but there's no negotiation. Like, it's that brings the mental resiliency side into the training. Like, there's physical fitness, there's physical conditioning. That's anybody. You can go to the gym, climate controlled gym, your favorite playlist, and then go exercise and go work out, and that's great. But you're not. I don't think you're truly mentally growing because you're doing what you want to do. Like, you're going to a restaurant, you're looking at a menu, and you're picking out what you want to order. Versus going to a restaurant and the coach picks out the menu and goes, "No, you're going to eat this," and you're like, "I don't want to eat this." You don't have a choice.
Yeah,
So it's the same thing with training. It's
yeah,
that mental grind and that mental growth of being forced to train and do certain things that on your own you never would have done.
yeah, absolutely. And it's just it's doing not what you want to do, but what's necessary, right? And sometimes it's paramount that you disconnect from being in control of that. And I think that's what kind of catapulted you, man. And it's interesting. So Sam is super humble, and I think it's an amazing quality. But I think this is also important to talk about. So Sam came to me with the goal of wanting to go through a specific smoke diver program. I'll leave the name out of it. And we were a week out from that program, and Sam got hurt. His back was jacked, right? I mean, could barely walk, right, brother? I mean, it was pretty
Probably
hard.
it was probably one of the lowest. It was a very, very low point. I could not believe how something just completely out of the blue just can completely crush you, where you're training hard and training at a high level and then just back to square one.
Yeah,
Have a nice day.
it's good one, right? It's one of those things you can do everything right, and you're not in control, right? Like you're not
Yeah,
you're
that
not
was
100%.
that was from a humility standpoint. That was a very tough pill to swallow. Being training for a year, getting after it for a year, excited, motivated, hungry, and then 10 days out, your eyes open and you can't touch your toes.
Mm.
But then that question in your mind just goes, okay, what do you want to do now?
Right, right, and I'm sure it's we as humans get emotional, and we talked a lot throughout that process, and I think there was a moment in time where you went through those lows, and you had to navigate coming back out with the optimistic perspective, not a pessimistic perspective. And at the end of the day, when things don't go your way, the quicker you shift your mindset to let's get back to work, let's figure out how to overcome this, the more successful you're going to be. And that's exactly what Sam did in this experience, right? In this kind of low point. And he went from there. Let's talk about your year of firefighting in 2024. So we were able to get healthy within a couple months, right? 2, 3 months.
Yeah, no, it was about 6 weeks of a hard stop. It was 6 weeks of ice, anti-inflammatories, and a nice coffee cup full of hate and violence on the couch, being told to sit still.
And then what was the next? Yeah, so let's talk about it. So we're building Sam back up, right? We're getting the programming back going. We're gaining some momentum, and you text me, "Hey man, this I got into this smoke diver program," and I'm like, from a coaching standpoint, I was like, "Hey, I personally don't think this is a good idea, especially 2 months back, you could barely get out of bed."
I think the exact quote was, "Have you lost your damn mind?"
Yeah. You went forward with it anyways. So let's talk about that quick experience you went through. If you want to talk about what program it was, cool. If not, we can leave it vague.
No, again, it was 6 weeks of being crippled, very, very tight, lower back pain, getting through that, chiropractic appointments, anti-inflammatories, ice, mobility, got the inflammation down, started doing some mobility, started doing some low impact training, Murph style, Cindy style workouts where I wasn't compressing the lower back, got some strength built up. You did some programming where we were now isolating, targeting, and strengthening the lower back. And after 8 weeks from injury, we were we were back in full swing of training and we were good to go. Got an opportunity to travel north for a smoke diver program, and I know what my endeavors are long term. So my thought process was, got to dip my toe in the water. I gotta see how my body's going to handle this workload. I've got to happen. I can't just what if this. I got to get back in that arena. I've got to put the workload on my body and got to roll the dice and see what happens.
Yeah. So we rolled the dice and we came out successful, right? So, which from a coaching standpoint, goes to show me how resilient the body is when the mind's in line, right? And vice versa. And not to mention the volume and training that we had put in the year prior to the Florida Smoke Diver program. But fast forward to the fall of that year and another opportunity comes up and, you come out successful of both, right? So you come from a moment of, for basically a year of training to be unsuccessful to then a year of being successful. And then we fast forward to the ultimate goal, which was the Florida Smoke Diver program. We get there. How were we feeling going into that process?
Getting to Ocala, like when people always ask the question, like, hey man, what program's harder? Which one's more difficult? Which one was the hardest experience for you? And I tell everybody the same answer. And everybody's experience is different. It all depends. There's so many variables. What chapter of life you're in, your season of life. My early 20s, going unmarried, no kids. My body and my mind was different. My life was different. Then fast forward to 2024, life was different. Department call volume was different. Married with 2 kids now. Completely different experience. But as far as a metric or a way to quantify these programs, you look at it from a work capacity standpoint, or you look at it with a nervous system response standpoint. Does this program give me a nervous system response? Does it suppress my appetite? Things like that. That's a good way to measure and gauge these programs. But when I got to Ocala, I can confidently say, through our collaboration and preparing, I took the best version of myself at that time to Ocala.
I love it. And we'll leave out the details. What I want to drive home from what happened in Ocala is something that's going to help the majority of people. And that's, bro, you've been super successful, ultra successful. You've prepared for every endeavor you've ever faced. You've put yourself in very difficult situations. You take a lot of pride and you're very disciplined in your approach. So success is always going to be in your favor. But with that being said, the beautiful thing about these programs is sometimes it's not enough, right? Sometimes it's not about success. It's about growth, right? And sometimes failure is involved with growth. And
Absolutely.
I want to get your perspective on your mindset now versus when you left Ocala being unsuccessful this past year, and what that did for you. And just share that with the audience. I know we've talked on a personal level, but
Yeah.
with
No,
kind of your...
First and foremost for everybody, failure is not an outcome. Failure is a process. Just remember that. The purpose of these programs is to create the most authentic training, as realistic as the real thing is possible. Very good conversation that took place in that class was referencing Colonel Dave Grossman in his publication, The Psychology on Combat, discussing, hey, back in World War II days, your firearms training, you raise your hand and you say you want to go fight for your country. Okay, your combat firearms training was shooting metal targets. And then they put you on a boat or put you on a plane and send you over to Germany to fight for your country. Fast forward, June 6, 1944, when we invaded the beaches of Normandy, only 20% of our men actually drew a firearm and engaged the enemy, because that was the first time that they had experienced actual combat, gunfire, their buddies getting shot next to them, and a human being pointing a gun at them. Case in point, their training failed them. Because all that they knew was shooting a metal target. So with these programs in the fire service, these elite programs, it's the exact same philosophy. It's not to wash anybody out. It's not to weed people out. It's not to tell you you're not good enough to be a fireman. It's making it as authentic as possible and to try and create and maximize a Rolodex to draw back from, so that when you are in our combat environment, you don't freeze, you don't flight, you fight. And that program for me, that was the 4 best days of training I ever experienced.
Love it.
Fantastic program, fantastic cadre. I didn't know that a training environment could be pushed that far with the intensity, with the live fire. I'm thinking numerous agencies back where I came from would be like, we can't do this. We get somebody killed. I'd never seen anything like it.
Yeah. And it's just a testament, man, to the people that come back and help put the program on, and their dedication to being the best firefighters they can be, upholding that standard. And with great training comes great instruction, right? With that environment being available, there has to be the people that make it available and have made it their mission to be the best that they can be, to ensure that not only you experience the best training you can, but, and I'm not a safety guy by any means, but at the end of the day, you shouldn't get hurt during training. Like, training is a controlled environment. But I think we've gone the opposite end in the National Fire Service of making training safe to the point where you're not benefiting from it, right? I think, and you can probably agree with me, brother, we can make it realistic, but also controlled, right? And that's the variable that we want. And still be safe, right?
Yes.
The determining factor of safe is your preparation. It's not the training. It's not the evolution. It's not the conditions. If your training is not where it needs to be, that's what's making things unsafe, right? And before we even talk about training, you and I both agree on this. If your fitness and your mindset is not what it needs to be, a simple evolution of forcing a door, stretching a hose line could involve a catastrophe medical emergency of an individual. I saw just recently this week, man, 2 people from, I'll leave the department out of it, but 2 people in the fire service had a medical emergency and died, right? They worked for the same department. And that should be a red flag right there of what is our standard of physical health. You know what I mean? It can't be something that we overlook, but I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole. I want to stay disciplined to this because we're hitting it. We're going on a good path here. Man, thank you, bro. Thank you for sharing that. That's tough, especially for people that are going through the trials, that are unsuccessful, that have had a tough go. I think the successful people, a lot of people that I know that have been successful, they do, man. They, I wouldn't say they coast, but they don't hammer down. I mean, I think you even coasted for a couple of years, right? Until, we kind of opened that new chapter of like, what are we capable of if we take things to the next level?
Well, again, it's chapters and seasons. Post Georgia, I got married, started a family, bought a house, changed apartments. So, I mean, you can pivot with different seasons and chapters of your life, but then you can reemerge and you can come back. So it's not just
Yeah, let's talk about that. That's a great transition. So speaking about reemerging, and I talked about it in this last podcast that I just dropped. Recently went through one bad tour in Georgia Flames, which so have you, and it was super unique because I've been coaching Sam for a long time, and when I went through Georgia Flames, I was I was a candidate and Sam was an instructor. So the roles were reversed, and I called him sir and respected him at the highest level because he was obviously somebody that was a part of the cadre, right? So let's talk about that, man. So I went through that one class, one bad tour. Thank you, Basil. I appreciate it. And I made my way up to Chatsworth. So I had the distinct pleasure of having Sam talk to all the instructors and basically tell them like, hey, like this guy's really good, man. Like he's gonna do good, right? So, being supportive and having my back and just giving me like all the cheers brought attention to who I am, aside from the podcast and the Instagram and all the other fucking stuff that comes with my name. But
I was like, you didn't need my help.
Yeah, no kidding. And so talk to me, bro. I want to hear from your perspective because we never really got to dive into it. So first of all, I said it in the last podcast and I'll revisit it. I was told that we check in at a specific time and then we have several hours to like do our own thing and then the class starts. The person who told me that was this guy right here. He obviously failed to mention that once you step on the grounds, you don't leave the grounds until the class is over. So there was a sandwich and a beverage that I never got to revisit that was in my vehicle. But brother, I remember when I got there, I saw you and, I kept it professional, man. I respect the fact that when you go through these programs, guys, if you have friends, if you have family, if you have brothers, right? Like, just guys you train with that are basically family. Don't let it dilute the experience. Understand that you need to experience that as if you don't have that safety net. And obviously the guys that are there that they want you to be successful, but show them the respect and act like you don't even know them, right? That gives you the understanding that you have to earn that spot, right? They earned it. What's the difference? So that was my mindset when I showed up. What were you thinking? How did I look? We'll jump right into, we'll talk about everything without talking about everything, if that makes sense, and go from there, because I don't want to obviously say anything about the program.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's also, I mean, numerous cadre will tell you, like, we'll tell you the whole playbook. You still got to run the plays. But
Right.
first and foremost, it's the phone call you and I had driving up. You left one bad tour and you're driving up to Chatsworth, and I call you. I go, hey man, how you feeling? First thing you say was, why did you tell me to do both back to back? And I go, because it's doable. What are you talking about? You're done. You're done with one. You're on your way up. What's the problem? I remember that. That was great. And I remember telling you, hey man, make sure you eat like a solid like Thanksgiving dinner meal before you get to Chatsworth. I do remember telling you that, but I did, yes. As far as like when you walk up, you're basically walking into a concentration camp. Yeah, I definitely left that part out, and that was not on purpose. That was just 100% forgot that detail.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you thought it was going to be like in Ocala where you have a little bit more freedom to like sort of come and go.
Yeah.
That arena is more, it's more of a POW camp. Once you check in, you belong to them.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll kind of go back and forth here, but so whatever, we check in, hurry up and wait, right? You sit around and the class gets kicked off. So I'm not going to explain to you guys what happens, but nonetheless, we perform physical activity throughout the entire 48 hours. So we're performing physical activity, fitness, as some would call it. And at this point, I have the distinct pleasure of seeing my guy here, right? My client, my trainee, whatever word you want to call it, friend is now
I like that one.
is now yelling at me, right? And I'm the candidate, and I'm the little guy. It was a cool moment, and I got a pretty cool picture on my Instagram of it. That was pretty sick. We're both in the push-up position. Yeah. So man, like that program for me at least, and I want to hear your perspective. It's so special, man. Like that program, it's everything that's right with the fire service. Like truly, it's the standard that needs to be held, but it's also the brotherhood that needs to be reinstated, bro. Like we don't have that at the level that it is at Chatsworth. And I don't know if it's because of the standard that Mo Baxter set. I don't know what it is, man, but it was so special, dude. It was so special.
It boils down to, this goes back to a very good friend of mine. We have this conversation all the time, and we'll text it to each other when there's a hard moment or a decision that has to be made. It's the term blood is thicker than water, which that's interpreted as family ties are stronger than friendships. But that's actually taken out of context from the original quote, which is the quote that he and I share. He shared with me originally, and now we say it all the time now. Blood is thicker than water, yes, but it's actually blood of the covenant, or blood of a covenant, is thicker than the water of the womb, meaning it's the intentional relationships that we invest in. When you swear an oath with a cadre, with a group of people, with a tribe, those relationships through adversity, pain, suffering, hardship, shared suffering, those relationships end up becoming stronger than the relationships that you're born into and you inherit, meaning the water of the womb.
Yeah.
And with the program, it's very close knit, and it is a very, very strong tribe with strong relationships of folks that come from all over.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, man, is something that I talk about often is the give a shit factor. Everybody there has a very high give a shit factor, right? Everybody cares to the smallest detail. And that's the beautiful thing about that program is there's not one detail missed. And it goes to show how important that is, not only as a fireman, but as a human, right? And I think we've kind of lost track of that as to how important the little things are. And it really is from, the definition of what flame stands for, the definition of COD, what it is to be excellent at the basics, what it means to work well as a team when your team members aren't good, confident, the best. Right? We would like to assume that we jump on any rig in America and the crew's squared away. You and I both know that that's not always the case, right? But that should never determine the quality of service that we deliver, right? The quality of service should be determined by the mindset and the heart of the firefighters on that truck. And yeah, man, that 48-hour experience was life changing. And I'll be honest, man, that challenge that I did of those two classes back to back was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I'll kind of break that down You spoke about it earlier as far as stages, chapters in your life, right? I had been building Prepare to Fight Fire the last 4 or 5 years since, and then ultra running since I went through Florida Smoke Divers. And so it had been a while that I put myself, in somebody else's arena. I won't say in the arena because I always try to put myself to do hard things and to challenge myself, but in somebody else's arena. And it was interesting because for me, this challenge being one of the hardest things I've done was just that because of what I stand for now, what I built, the sole, just simple fact of I represent something bigger than myself, right? Not to mention, I'm a guy that came into the program that coached you, right? And you're one of the cadre. So how would it look if I came in and was a complete soup sandwich? You know what I mean? Like, and then this guy's coaching you. Like, how does that make any sense? So I say that because the pressure was there. But I've trained my entire life to put myself in a position where pressure is a privilege. And that's a quote that I really love. It is just that, because pressure means that you're responsible for something bigger than yourself, right? And that's what we're doing here. And bro, I told you, and I'll tell you time and time again, thank you for making that experience like as special as it was.
You put in the work, man.
Yeah. That was what it is. So let's break this down and wrap this podcast up. What do you have to say to the guy that's hungry but lost?
You've got to seek out mentors. It takes a village. If you're out there navigating these waters by yourself, there's people that have already drawn in the edges of the map. You've got to seek out folks, not to get answers for a test. That's not what I'm referring to, but for guidance. Network with people who have been through these programs that are at this level of training. Again, not give you the answers, but you also don't want to just train like a wild dog with no guardrails and parameters. When you're preparing for classes like this, recovery and nutrition is just as important as the training regimen. It's a brick by brick process. It's not the clock strikes midnight Cinderella transformation.
It's not. I get a lot of questions on Instagram, and for you guys all know, we as Prepare to Fight Fire do not do programming. That's not what we do here. We coach, right? And I'm going to tell you why we coach. Coaching develops skill sets, and skill sets are forever. Programs are very generic and they're very broad, and that's not something that we do. And like Sam just said, it's much bigger than just getting better in gear, right? The biggest thing I see with guys wanting to do these classes is you've got a guy that wants to be macho man and be a tough guy and be a badass, and you're doing 4 gear workouts a week, but you can't do 50 push-ups straight, right? Like that's your first.
If I can interject, if your objective is to separate yourself and create a culture of comparison, or to create a you against them mentality, to put others down and to exalt yourself, these programs are not for you. These programs are not about exalting yourself. People that attempt these programs with a egotistical approach, those candidates are typically unsuccessful because they're there for the wrong reasons. These programs, they make you a better human being. It's not just about being a better fireman or being a better professional. You will come home, you'll be a better spouse, you'll be a better father, you'll be a better brother, you'll be a better human being.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And I'll leave it with this, and we'll shut it down. Something that Preston Benninger said, and I got to this point in one bad tour where I just had a fuck it moment, and it was in the middle of the night. I said, you know what, man? At the end of the day, yeah, I don't really give a shit what the outcome is. As long as I can go out sending it 100% and putting my all into whatever's in front of me, then the only thing somebody can say is that he gave it his all and he was unsuccessful, right? I'd rather that than somebody say he was successful, but he only gave just enough, right? And like Preston Benninger said at Georgia Flames, right? You guys have the wrong mindset. If your mindset isn't, I'm going to leave it all out here and whatever happens, happens, then you're not here for the right reason. And that's the truth. In these endeavors, guys, if your mindset is, I want to be successful for the patch or I want to be successful for the title, then this ain't for you. You're missing the whole boat. And if you're unsuccessful and your mindset is, I don't want to do this program anymore, they were this or those guys think they're that, you also have missed the boat. You've missed the boat.
That's the inflamed ego on one end and then the bruised ego on the other.
So Sam, dude, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. Guys, we offer coaching. Newsflash, prepare to fight fire. So we get people better than where they are. All right. And we break things down. We approach it from a holistic standpoint. We don't skip steps. It is a professional, guided coaching one-on-one experience, like I like to say. It is not for everybody. You need to be ready to commit. You need to be ready to put in the work. And like Sam said, man, we break it all down. Fitness, mindset, nutrition, recovery. It's all broken down. So, Sam, dude, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.